Okay, so here we have, let's see, a graph of a polynomial, and we're asked to find an equation for that graph. And so in this case, one way to go about this is observing here you have the x-axis right here. So let me highlight that. Okay, and we look at the places where the graph crosses the x-axis or touches it, and those are going to give us the x-intercepts and the factors. So here we see that it crosses at x equals -3. We have one at x equals -1, and then this special place where it just touches the x-axis at x equals 2. So each one of these is going to give us a factor. So looking at x equals -3, that gives us the factor x plus 3. Looking at x equals -1, that gives us the factor x plus 1. And then looking at this at x equals 2, it gives us the factor x minus 2. But because it just touches and goes back up, it's squared. All right, so that's the beginning of it. And the next bit is to figure out the leading coefficient, what goes out in front. And so one way to look at that is to think about the y-intercept. Okay, the y-intercept is at y equals 2. How do we get the y-intercept? We plug in 0. So if I plug in 0 to what I got, I'm going to get a 3 up here times from this factor, right, plugging in 0. I'm going to get a 1 in this from the second factor by plugging in 0. And then I'm going to get a -2, but then square it. That gives me a 4 when I plug in 0. So plugging in 0 would get me 3 times 1 times 4, and that's 12. So that by itself is going to have a y-intercept of 12, but look at our graph. It's a y-intercept of 2. So what do I multiply 12 by to get the number 2? And the answer is 1/6, right? So that's going to be the leading coefficient. And so in the end, it's a big old mess, but that's how you get the final solution.